Hi, I'm Angie with Sisters on Board. Today we're going to be painting this cute little square. It's so good to be home. It's got some fun little lavender details, a cute little butterfly, and I love this saying. It's such a cozy sentiment as we go into spring, and we are including a little easel so you can display it anywhere in your home. So are you ready to get started? Alright, let's get started. We're going to base coat the background on the It's So Good to Be Home square. I'm using white paint for this. I like to use a sponge for my base coats because it gives a really smooth, soft finish, especially on pieces like this that have engraving. Now, if you notice, this piece has engraved details rather than just cut lines. So when you're applying your paint, you want to lightly dab instead of brushing. That way you don't push paint into those engraved lines and lose that detail. One thing I always like to mention, less paint is more. If your sponge is too loaded, you're going to get streaks and buildup. So when you dip into your paint, dab some of it off before you go onto your piece. White especially is going to take a few coats, so don't worry about getting full coverage right away. Just build it up slowly. And remember, if you have to do another coat or two, that's totally normal. So now we're going to do the lavender pieces. For the first piece, we're going to paint the back piece, and that's going to be the darker purple, like a purple iris. Same technique here, just lightly dabbing. And for the top piece, we're going to use a lighter purple, like a soft lavender or purple petal. This contrast is going to give us a really pretty layered look once everything is assembled. And then we're moving on to the butterfly. We're going to paint the body yellow. Something soft and springy, not too bright. Don't worry too much about the body right now. We can always touch that part up later with black. And then with the word home, I'm using a dark chocolate brown. And that'll be a nice contrast with the white background and ties in beautifully with the natural cozy feel of this piece. Again, light dabbing, thin layers. And I'm also going to use this same dark brown for the easel so everything coordinates nicely. And don't forget to paint both sides. So paint one side, let it dry, and then do a second or another coat on the other side. So at this point, everything should have the first base coat. So you need to go look at all your pieces and decide what needs a second coat, and do that at this time before we go on to the detail work. So don't forget to paint the body of the butterfly with the black. And then once everything is fully base coated, you could stop here and assemble, and it would be a beautiful project. But if you'd like to add a little bit more detail and give it some depth, we're going to do a blending technique. So we're going to take a fresh sponge and do a blending technique on the lavender pieces. So I'm going to take a fresh sponge and dip one side in the dark purple and one side in your light purple. And then using a soft circular motion, I gently dab the sponge on your palette paper or whatever you're using for your surface, and then blend it together. So for the dark purple, I take the light side and lightly tap just the edges of the lavender pieces just to give it a little bit of contrast. And I'm using the whole sponge. I'm not just doing the very tip where the light paint is. I'm dabbing on the whole thing. Because you have your dark purple and your light purple on there, that's what helps it blend together. So just tap the edges or wherever you'd like to have a little bit of a contrast. So for this project, it's nice because we can use the same sponge and add the little bit of blending technique on the lighter purple because we're using the same two colors. So for this one, just flip your sponge around and dab some darker purple on the tip of the pale lavender pieces, just like that. And if you'd prefer, you could also dry brush a little white on there for a softer highlight. It's totally up to you. Now comes the fun part, putting it all together. I'm using a glue and just applying it in small strategic spots, especially on the tips of the lavender pieces so they stay secure and don't lift over time. You don't need a lot of glue here, just enough to hold everything in place. So layer your pieces one at a time. Start with your main lavender layer and position that into the corner, bottom left corner, and then add glue to the smaller lavender piece. Again, just with some dots. So you're going to just carefully position that on top of the darker purple. And then next you're going to add your butterfly. And carefully lining it up with the engraved lines on your square, and then carefully peel the word home off of the tape and apply your dots of glue, especially on the edges, the tip of the H and the end of the word, and position that into place. And just make sure everything is lined up and adjusted. And now just slide the two pieces of the easel together. Sometimes it's a little snug. You can push it together and then put your square onto the easel and it's ready for display.